I like it.
Hi guys! Thank you all for coming. This is an insane turnout. I never expected this, but I am deeply appreciative. So I'm St. Joan. I work for weirdgirls.com, weird-girls.com. And we decided to get involved with HavenCon because it's an amazing organization, and quite a few of our girls are bi or pan. So we decided that we needed to discuss something that would be important to us, and that is bi and pan representation in the media, as well as just kind of in the community. So that's why I'm here, and I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll get started, okay? So, yeah.
Starting with it? Okay. I'm not a weird girl, hi. My name is Mia. I mean, I'm a weird girl.
You're a weird girl.
I'm not one of the weird girls. Yeah, not part of the weird girls. Hi, I write, I cosplay. My website is exomia.com. I write about cosplay, and I cosplay, and I write. Yeah. And do I have to say I'm bi? Like, is that implied?
This is a safe space.
Okay. It's like coming out all over again. Fun fact, I came out by posting a picture on Facebook that said, "Do you like boys or girls?" Yes.
That's the best way to come out of it.
Yeah, my mom wasn't as thrilled with it as I was. Alright, that's it.
I'm Kelly Nova. I am a weird girl and with the weird girls. I do the cosplay content, videos, and Instagram. And I'm bi.
Sounds like we're at like an AA meeting.
Right.
Hi, Kelly. So I'm Danny Danger. I am a weird girl. I'm with Weird Girls.
Sorry.
You can be a weird girl too.
I was getting nervous there.
Weird Girl is a gender inclusive term.
Yes.
But I do our comic book stuff. So I talk about like pull list. I talk about things that are going on in the social climate of comic books. Getting into anime, that kind of thing, and it's basically like if you are new to comic books or you're new to this particular fandom, we want to help you get into it and still, help those who have been into comic books appreciate the content that they've always loved. And I'm pansexual. I've identified as bisexual for a long time, but without like really actively talking about it or acknowledging it. It was just kind of a thing that was there. And I said something about it in a video, and then, my mother called, and suddenly I was out, and have very, very, very recently come to the realization that I actually identify as pansexual, not bisexual.
Okay, well, you guys know me already. I'm H, the talent coordinator for HavenCon, and I guess I was going to say I'm a weird girl.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
You're not with the weird girls.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're not with the weird girls. We were pink on Wednesdays. You can't sit with us. Sorry.
But I'm wearing pink under here.
I take that back,
And again, I really do feel like I'm kind of coming out again, because I guess, yes, I kind of am bisexual. I'm just more with the boys than the girls, but yeah, so.
You're not a practicing bisexual.
I
don't think any of us are.
Oh.
So yeah, I think that's what I feel like, is I think I'm like a non-practicing.
Yeah.
No. And we will talk about that. We will talk about that. But yes, so. That's me. And we're
None of us practicing bisexuals.
And I like the and I'm wearing pink.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Well then, yes, since we're sharing coming out stories, so I'm actually pansexual myself because, pan pride.
Boom!
Yeah. So, but it's funny because the first time I brought home a guy, my mom was disappointed. She was like, "Damn it!
Mom and my mom
I
have
thought
a
I
talk."
raised a good lesbian."
That's so
Sorry, Mom.
heartwarming.
I want to be that kind of mom. Like, that's great.
I think you would be that kind of mom now. My mom's.
She's special.
She's special.
Oh.
But like in an encouraging way.
Yeah. Being my mom in the 90s. Oh God, I just aged myself.
As if you're sorry.
I wasn't going to say it.
I just know I'm getting out of this one. Anyway. Alright, so that being said, let's see. what should we talk about first? Let us look at, let's say, prominent bisexual characters in our respective loves and try and discuss what we find encouraging, what we find problematic about the representation. Sound good?
Sure.
So, Danny, I know you have
Opinion!
thoughts on this.
So my thing is, we did actually the video where my mom ended up calling me and being like, "So you're bisexual."
Oh my god,
was-
I'm so embarrassed.
Oh my god, Kelly.
Dance it with us.
It's an alarm to remind me to do my video.
I thought you were gonna say it was the alarm to remind you
be
that the
the panel.
panel was
It was very calming.
Kira's usually when it goes off, I'm like, ah! So, to calm me down. So sorry, you guys. Anyway, what were you saying?
So the video that caused my mother to call me and actually have the like, "Oh, you're bisexual" conversation was a video that we did about, hey, DC, WTF, Wonder Woman is obviously bisexual, why haven't we not addressed this? And we basically went through and did all of these like canon references to, when she was written as a queer character and things that she has said and the like social probability that growing up and coming of age on an island full of women means that she would have at least, fooled around with a girl. And so that was sort of, and so the day it came out, DC announced that Catwoman was bisexual.
Yeah.
Which was a great announcement, but there's also this flip side of it that frustrates me with bisexual or pansexual representation. What pansexual representation? But with the bisexual representation that and well, definitely with bisexual representation is that we don't elevate characters who are like all American heroes. Like, I don't know if a lot of you are fans of the bisexual Steve Rogers. Yes, the bisexual Steve Rogers is a thing, and it's a fan call. It's a fan call for fans who are saying, like, Captain America is the embodiment of America, and yes, my America includes people who are bisexual. And that's sort of how I feel about Wonder Woman, and that's sort of how I feel about, DC saying that Catwoman was bisexual. I feel like it was sort of one of those moments where it was like, oh yay, a win! That's sort of a win. Sort of a win.
It seems like a sexualization of
there have been
Catwoman.
a lot of people who are now sort of saying that, like, the common response that I heard the most was, well, it makes sense for her to be bisexual because Catwoman is a very sexual person and she uses her sexuality to get what she wants. And there's this, and choosing Catwoman particularly does sort of reinforce this idea that bisexual people just like don't, or bi and pansexual people just like don't discern. Yeah. Which is so stupid because I'm like crazy picky, crazy picky, and
as like, because I hear like groans going on through the room. Who here? I'm assuming that we have a healthy mix of our people. Who here has experienced prejudice because of their bi or pansexuality? How much of it has been because you've been seen as sexually predacious? Are you?
I mean, it's not.
It's okay if you are.
Yeah.
If you're into it, yeah.
That's not the point.
There's a difference between being sex positive and being, because like, if you want to screw, go, do it.
Do your thing, be safe, be healthy, be happy.
Yes.
But it's different than using it as a
As a
weapon
weapon.
and being manipulative through sex, and which is kind of
Or like being
point they
unable
were
to hold
making.
down a single partner or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was sort of
But
how I
that's
felt
not like
about
an
Catwoman.
unhealthy thing to
Well, like
do.
the idea is like that you're constantly cheating, not that it's like an okay thing in your
Gotcha.
relationship.
Yeah, that you're like you have a monogamous standard and you're just like not monogamous. Which, by the way, monogamy is not a black and white. Like it's not a thing that
But
has
that's
to
a
happen
different
in a
panel.
relationship.
That's a
Yes.
different
Yeah.
panel.
Anyway, tangenting.
Talking about Catwoman.
And yes.
But yeah, Catwoman as, she uses sex as a means to an end, not as,
Yeah.
an end of itself.
And bisexuality, like in comics, is so very rarely visible. There are some things, a lot of, the best bisexual representation in comics that you can find are going to be smaller publisher indie titles. Strangers in Paradise, Strangers in Paradise, Strangers in Paradise. If you haven't read Strangers in Paradise, your heart, there's a chunk missing out of your heart and you don't even know it. Like,
So how do you feel about Strangers in Paradise?
I love it! But it was, I think it was the first time in a comic that I actually read about just like, you know, bisexual or pansexual characters and people wrestling with these issues and dealing with these issues in the context of like their own personal relationships and their own personal lives. You know, because there have been other stories where I have seen, you know, bisexual characters, but it was in like Why the Last Man, where, you know, the women don't really have a whole lot of choice. So there are a few books out there, but it is harder to find. And when you have those major publishers have a character come out as bisexual, you need to make damn well sure that you are representing properly. And I just wasn't thrilled about the Catwoman thing, especially because nobody at DC will just come out and say that Harley and Ivy are a couple. Like, who cares about that? Who gives a shit about Catwoman?
So they were like on track.
Yes, they are like doing everything but saying that they're a couple. They're a couple. It's cool. Let's move on.
She calls him her partner.
Yes.
Have you noticed that, like, it seems like they're more accepting of having, like, a gay or lesbian character? Like, they'll say it outright, but when it comes to bisexual characters, it's really vague. So, like, when I knew I was coming to HavenCon, I was like, I would love to solely, like, cosplay characters that are queer. And I was like, what cosplays do I have? And I found out that I have a lot that could, like, Ramona could be considered queer, but it's never defined. And, like, Daenerys I have, and she, like, does do stuff with ladies in the books, but it's never like, oh, she's bisexual. And I just feel like people shy away from that label where they don't shy away from gay or lesbian.
Well, even Ramona, like, she does have a female ex.
Yeah, but then they
she's
They're like, oh, it's
downplayed.
sexy.
Yeah, she's downplayed as like a has-been.
That is actually a huge pet peeve of mine, is the whole, like, you're not bisexual just because you had a girlfriend in college.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually the definition of bisexual. I am attracted to men and women. That is the definition of bisexual. It doesn't really matter if that person that I slept with was in college, or if, you know, if I didn't figure out I was bisexual until I was in a relationship with a man and I haven't slept with a woman. Like, there's so much stigma about bisexuality, and I feel like it's harder to figure out that you're bisexual because there is so much public attitude out there that doesn't take bisexuality seriously.
Yes.
Yeah, like the whole interviews with Anna Paquin about, oh, you're married, so you're not bisexual anymore. It's like, no, she's still bisexual.
Yeah.
She answered those questions really well, though.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, no, I'm just married.
Yeah. Yeah. Being
Can we talk
married.
about
Yeah,
Ramona
it's
for a
not like you
second?
just turn
Yeah.
What did I say?
So Ramona, her whole plot is that she has 7 evil exes, and one of them is a girl. And that whole part really bothers me because it seems like they clearly have a history, they have a conflict, but it was never resolved. And she, like, Scott's like, oh, so you went through a sexy phase, and she's like, kind of acts like it was more than that. But then she says, oh, I was just a little bi-curious. And so she never establishes what conclusion she got out of that, and that really bothers me because as someone looking for representation, I'm like, I want to know, are you gay or not? Like, it seems like you guys still have a thing. In the comics, they, like, hang out for a couple of days, and it's implied that, like, she slept over at her house or something. Like, so I'm just like, what happened? Because obviously you've got to a conclusion.
Would you say it made you a little bi-furious?
I know.
You are so proud. Like, she's just glowing right now.
I know. Trademark signature.
I got the trademark.
I got this, guys. I got this.
Best ever.
Well, and that is like my frustration with not calling Wonder Woman what it is. Like, we know what it is. You don't have to interrupt the storyline. However, Wonder Woman, like, has a currently ongoing romance comic with Superman. How powerful would it be for her to come to Superman in that issue and be like, hey, we need to talk about something. There's something you should know about me. And then Superman, America's hero, is like, that's cool. I accept that about you. How powerful a message would that be? Why aren't we doing that? It's a romance comic. This is a conversation that it seems like this power couple should have had by now.
You would think.
You would think this would have been addressed.
Or
Okay,
they just
I'm
so
done.
evolved that they don't even need to address it.
Maybe he just knows.
We just communicate telepathily and she just bosses him around. They're a terrible couple anyway.
What I'm wondering is, like, does every, sorry, I don't know if you're at Q&A, but does, like, every...
I was gonna do that later.
I think the room is so small that it's just automatic.
Yeah, you know, we're having a conversation. It's very intimate here. And we're all friends. But I'm just wondering, like, what... I kind of have I take issue with the fact that it needs to be, like, named and hyper zeroed in on. Why can't it just be a natural part of the story?
Well, I think
I think in the case of Ramona, it seems like her response as, "Oh, I was just bi-curious," was kind of like
dismissive.
Yeah, like, oh no, that's not really what's happening.
It literally felt like
Don't
they
freak
added
out.
it.
But what if
It
that
literally
really
felt like-
was what it was? What if she just was?
Because it felt like they added it in as a joke so they could make the bi-furious joke, and so that Scott could be like, "Oh, you had a sexy phase," and she could keep correcting him, like, "No, just exes, not ex-boyfriends." Like, it felt like just a series of throwaway jokes.
There's an argument for pandering as well, like pandering to the young male adult who is very much into the straight girl that will love him devotedly, but also, went down on a girl that one time.
Which is another, like, that's a problematic representation of bi and pansexual females especially. But, like, what I would like to really address is, like, when we discuss those characters that you mentioned, Wonder Woman and Catwoman, they're female, but, bisexual Steve Rogers is infinitely more difficult to approach because men face a far harder road. Would you like to talk about that, Hunter?
Yeah. Well, this is my personal experience, but I remember when I came out in college, I came out as bisexual, and I did have boyfriends and girlfriends in high school, and some of the girlfriends were they're covered, but some weren't. And some of them I genuinely did have a relationship with them. And then when I went to college, it's almost like I had to be pigeonholed somewhere. Like the straight friends of mine, they would be like, "Well, no, you're still going through, you're kind of confused, but you're gay." And then when I would tell gay people that I was bi, they're like, "Yeah, of course, yeah, everybody starts out as bi, and then you end up gay like 6 months later. It's a natural progression." I'm like, no.
None of my gay friends went through a bi phase before they came out.
And it's just like, I mean, I can see how some people might do that, but it's like, why are you assuming that that's what it is with me? And that kind of shut me down, in that I was being shamed on both sides, where, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're cool with it that you're coming out, but you're not really bi. You gotta pick a side."
And it's like, well, then, yeah, you're not really cool with it then.
Yeah.
If
And
you're
it's
trying
just,
to
but
make
it was,
me...
so it's almost like I was just like, well, I guess I'll just be gay so I can hang out with people.
Do you feel like dudes are presumed, if they're bi, they're presumed to be gay, and chicks that are bi are presumed to be actually straight? Because I feel like it's the totally opposite reaction.
It's because I have opinions.
Peggy Carter has opinions?
I just explained away with misogyny.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense.
It's complete by misogyny. If you are bi or pan and you are, identified as female, well, of course you're going to end up with a guy. If you are bi or pan, you're going to end up with you're male, identified as male, you're going to end up with a male. Because the dick's just that good, you guys. That's what I feel like a lot of that is. It's just like everybody assumes the pinnacle of being with someone is being with someone who identifies as male.
Yeah.
Because that's, patriarchy.
Well, and on that note, like, it's taken me a long time, and only recently did I figure out and put a label to actually how I perceive people and my sexuality. And I have always been sexually attracted to women. It's been a thing. And I've always been like, oh yeah, but like everybody is, right? Because that's why that's why they're always naked on ads and shit. Like, how else am I supposed to feel? Because that's what the man's telling me to feel.
I literally thought, okay.
And then I realized, like, maybe 2 years ago, they're like, straight girls don't feel that way. That's why they're straight.
I had this conversation when I was in high school. I was attracted to the first girl that I had a legitimate crush on, and I was talking to my best friend about it, and I'm like, yeah, I like her, and it scares me because I mean, you can have sex with anyone, but that doesn't determine your sexuality. Anyone can have sex with anyone. It doesn't matter.
Well, I mean,
but to me,
kind of.
Well, that's how I feel. I'm just like, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the person you have feelings for, that determines your sexuality. And she was like, I've never wanted to be with a girl, and I'm like, ever?
It blows your mind.
But they're so gorgeous!
I just assumed, but boobs. Yeah.
You've never looked at boobs and wanted to touch them.
And I talk to people also that are not monosexual or whatever, and they feel the same way. They're like, yeah, I just assumed everybody was attracted to all attracted people, and then I found out that people weren't, and it was weird. That I had to do some serious thinking because I'm like, oh, that changes my whole perspective.
See, and I feel similarly about figuring out that I was pansexual versus bisexual because I just sort
What's
of
the
assumed
difference to you?
that.
Can you tell me?
So the difference to me is, bisexual are people who are attracted to to men and women, gender binary. Pansexual bisexual includes all of the area between gender binary. I actually have a lot of attraction for people who cross-identify, and people, and I have been very attracted to people who identify as gender ambiguous, I guess would be the right term, like, presentation-wise. And that was really confusing and weird for me when I found out that what I was attracted to was not included in bisexuality.
That's not necessarily true, though.
No, not necessarily, but it wasn't.
But for you, it didn't feel like the right word.
But for me, it didn't feel like the right word.
Yeah.
It just, and I think it does come down to semantics. I mean, I know a lot of people who are actually technically, pansexual, but say bisexual just because they don't have to. And I make this joke all the time, but like when I tell people I'm pansexual, they're like, "What's that?" And I jokingly tell them that I'm like just the gay Peter Pan.
The best description ever.
Yeah.
She's sexually attracted to bread, guys.
Yeah. Yes.
No, like,
But,
Yeah.
But and it does come down to semantics, and I think at the end of the day, it's whatever you're comfortable saying. But I do like using pansexual and being able to explain to people because I want them to understand that I'm not just attracted to gender binary folks, and that we do need to acknowledge that there are a lot of people that are identifying outside of the gender binary, and that those people have healthy relationships too.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Yes.
Basically,
I do have a question for Homer. So we felt like it was totally natural to be attracted to ladies. Did you have that inner conflict of what, you're not attracted to both, that's not a thing for you? Did you have that conversation?
Yeah, how did it
with
work for
people?
you?
Yeah.
Wait,
What?
because for us, we were always we're socialized, I think all of us are socialized to find women as sexual objects. Thanks, patriarchy. But like we were saying, there was always an attraction to both sides. We didn't realize that other people didn't feel that way about both.
Well, I mean, I definitely knew that not all guys liked other guys.
Yeah.
That part was.
That's more evident.
That's pretty.
I feel like.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
That was
But did you
Forward.
feel like it was unusual for you to like both?
To like both, yeah, because I kind of felt like you pick one or the other, and most of the stuff that I had seen about bisexuals was that it wasn't very good characterizations. It was just villains or
Oranges!
G-Dinses, ice picks, and it's just that's not really me.
The
but,
personification that we're greedy, we just like to have sex with
yeah,
everyone.
or that's or I'm just
We
doing,
can't
I'm just
choose.
I'm just with a girl so I can entice the guy, stuff like that. Yeah, I
I
did.
thought you had to have a boyfriend and a girlfriend, and that sounded like a lot of commitment.
I'm too lazy for that.
I've got 2 arms,
that we can do.
A chore wheel?
And how do I split my time up? Can I give Monday, Wednesday, Friday? How does it even work? I don't
It's
know.
every other weekend.
Every other.
It's like a fourth marriage.
2 Christmases.
We have a question.
Could I speak to that point too? I would like to also answer that question.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes, please do.
It's such an emphatic no. Men are instructed from the youngest age that being attracted to other men is wrong. And it's way better than it used to be. I'm 48.
Are you really?
Thank
You look so young.
I thought my contacts dried up because I was like, no, there's no way. There's no way.
But no, there was no mistake. The fact that I liked boys and girls and have identified as bi since a child, that meant there was something wrong. So there was no ambiguity. I never thought that there were other bisexuals, let alone that it was normal.
Do you still find that you face that sort of prejudice and uphill battle with people? I don't know if you're in a partnership or anything. Ah, well, awesome! Congratulations. But do you find it difficult to tell people that you are in fact bi and that this is?
No, it's a lot easier now. The biggest hurdle now is not just because homosexuality is a little bit more acceptable. But bisexuality is still not well understood. So the main thing that I encounter is people that don't think that it exists.
Yeah.
No, that's It's not true. You're with a woman right now. That means that you're straight.
People
or
seek
maybe
to-
you're gay. I
People
don't know
seek
which
to
you are, but
invalidate
you can't be
bisexuality.
bisexual. Yeah, it's like a thing
It's
that doesn't
weird.
exist.
But
Yeah.
okay,
So-
before you ever had sex with a person,
Mhm.
unless you are asexual, you had sexual attraction to somebody or some gender or something. And it just happens that we liked everybody in this room, and everybody liked everybody else.
Yeah. But that's interesting that it's not that way for
Yeah.
guys, because I never even thought about that, because
Yeah.
that was just my experience growing up. But,
But
you know,
it makes
I
sense
sort of
considering-
understood inherently
Yeah.
that we were supposed to be attracted to women, but it was weird because I knew that I was genuinely attracted to women because I wasn't attracted to the image of women that was being pushed on me. The first woman I actually remember being like super actively attracted to was Shirley Manson. Who is like the antithesis of all that misogyny and like patriarchy bullshit. I was
can we
like,
just talk about attractive
this
people
is
and
real.
like when I came out on Facebook, which my mom was not happy about, and she thought it was something we needed to have like a conversation about, which I guess I can understand, but that's exactly what I didn't want. I didn't want to make it a big deal because to me it's not. It's just a part of my personality that I was sick of like some people knowing and some people not, and so like some people are thinking I'm making a raunchy joke. It's like no, I'm actually attracted to women or something like. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I
I'm not
just
trying to
wanted,
be one of the guys.
yeah, I was
like
just
women.
like, okay, I just want to like come out and make it a thing. And when she called me about it, first off, she never uses the word bisexual. She always calls it that. So she called me this weekend and she was like, hey, so I saw you're doing a panel on that. And like, she's very supportive, but she will not say the word, and it's hilarious to me. So she calls and she's like, I saw what you posted on Facebook, and I'm like, okay, so we have this huge conversation, and she's just like, I just don't know why you didn't talk to me. I'm like, because it's not a big deal. And like, it was just a totally different reaction than I expected. And then she asked, I guess she thought that because I was coming out while I'm dating a guy, she thought that that meant I had a secret girlfriend.
Yeah.
And so she asked me about that, and it was like the most uncomfortable way of asking it too. It wasn't very straightforward. I don't remember what she said, but she was just like, I read on the internet there's something called a unicorn, and
No one can vote for you.
yeah, I know.
Like a wedding
You
for
need some
sexuality.
parental control.
It's a thing, but like she was genuinely like she's very supportive, and I love her, and she could have taken it a lot worse.
What did you read?
I think she just didn't like the way that I came out and the fact that I didn't talk to her first, so like everybody found out at the same time. And like now that I know she's like that, if I have anything else big, I'll just tell her personally first. Like I called her when I got my tattoo. I was like, I want you to know before I post a picture. Like, so now I get that she's like that, but it was
So it
just a
wasn't
weird
like she
reaction.
was upset with you. It was
She wasn't
more
like,
just
oh my god, my daughter. She was
You
just,
should have told me first.
Yeah.
I like. Oh, you're getting married? Why did I have to learn on Facebook?
yeah,
Kind of thing.
yeah, and that's probably my bad, but I just didn't. I don't see it as a big deal.
I
so
didn't see it as a big deal
Yeah.
either.
Yeah, you don't
wanna talk to
Same
your
conversation. So
parents
maybe
about
you
it.
have to listen to is
I
be more
think really-
considerate of your
Oh, I
mom.
have
Yeah,
something serious.
and I think really, guys, I think all of that is kind of important to discuss because, like was asked earlier, why does it need to be made a point of in media? And it needs to be made a point of right now because it's invisible. So the more we say, this is how we are, we exist, we swear, and, you know, kind of demonstrate not just, you know, the tropes, but healthy relationships that will help the community and our allies because, let's face it, we have a lot of problems within the community in how we treat vines.
So is anybody doing it right yet, or getting close to doing it right?
That's hard to say because
I know there's
Small things, some
holes,
different,
but-
some different, you know, smaller. I could probably recommend some comics, you know, that are doing this, and there are some shows and a few other things. But I mean, it's also important. Like I'm a creator, and I'm working on a script now, and I'm trying to take that into consideration. Like when I'm writing my script, I want to see the kind of relationships that I want to be in. So I mean, that is something to consider.
And you had a question?
Regarding erasure within the community, polysexuals are feeling a lot of erasure from within the bi and pan community, and it's something that also is erased from within that community. So it's erasure within erasure. It's just a spiral.
Yeah.
hell.
And that's something we definitely need to, you know, address. Like the fact that we kind of absorb pansexuality into bisexuality and, you know, poly. It's like, that's why I tend to just go with queer.
Yeah.
Because let's
I
just
like
all be
queer.
fabulous together and, you know, like.
If you need the details, like I'll tell you because
Yeah,
I'll
like-
be asking you out or something.
Because
like,
for me, if you have genitals that are interested in me, I'm interested in you. So like.
Let's talk.
Yeah. these labels, but I want to respect people's self-identification. And I think that's something that the community definitely needs to work on, is, accepting that there are, distinct sort of tribes within. And they do have their nuances, and it's important.
But that's why we need more representation, is because right now we just have the
And if you're
stereotype.
If you're watching a TV show that features, several different kinds of couples and mixed couples and different kinds of families and couples who are of different sexualities, you don't have to point at that couple and be like, they're bisexual, they're polyamorous. Like, you can tell that with the story. I mean, there's no need to splice up your story. It's sort of like with the Wonder Woman thing. Like, there's no reason to splice up your story and insert someone's sexual identity in a storyline where it doesn't make sense. Somebody at DC was asked why Harley hasn't come out, and they were like, well, if you read her comic right now, it's just not really something that's going on. She's dealing with a lot of other stuff. You don't need to interrupt somebody's storyline to address their sexuality. However, not addressing their sexuality in any other way. Like, DC could, we've talked about this a bunch, DC could release an infographic answering all of the questions that everyone has about sexual orientation about their characters.
Adventure
and
Time
not
did it.
Interrupt stories.
Like, they were like, we can't do this in the show, like, because we air in places where they can't have gay relationships, but Marceline and Bubblegum did date.
Yeah.
And that everyone was like, cool, that's all we needed.
Korosami.
Yeah,
Korosami is legit, though.
Yeah, but after the fact, they, but see,
They made it clear.
They were like, kiss
by
at
the way.
the end, though.
No.
We didn't get
The kiss would have been great. The kiss would have been
Yeah.
awesome, but it's, and it's
Did you
it's
have
about
people try to
good
tell you that she was a
storytelling.
lesbian? Because I was like, no, she's definitely bi.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's the thing too, because everybody seemed to be confused. Because no, she was with Mako, and now she's with the Sami, but that doesn't make sense because she was with Mako, and it's like
Well,
she
the
likes
thing though,
both.
they were like teenagers too, so it could be that like they were figuring things out.
And I
Like,
totally accept
think
that, but-
that like is also a possibility that has to be respected.
On that, I actually got in a huge argument with someone on Twitter, a popular lesbian blogger that was calling everyone that said that Cora was lesbophobic, and I'm like, where'd you get that? What are you talking about?
I feel like that's biphobic.
Yeah, it's
It was like a
bad.
representation argument. I'm like, are we fighting over cookies right now?
like, but I get both sides of that.
Yeah.
Fighting within the community is
It
just
was
like
rough.
I don't have any tolerance
no
for
patience.
that.
You had a
Like,
question.
Same team.
Yeah, I want to know when, this may be a when or an if question, we're going to get to a point where relationships are no longer a plot point. My case in point for that.
Well, I think that's as
My
good
case
as
in
go, but this
point for
panel.
that is Welcome to Night Vale. Cecil and Carlos, their relationship is not a plot point. They're just boyfriends.
Yeah.
And it does
No,
not drive
I
the
understand
plot.
It depends on the story. Like for Strangers in Paradise, totally a plot point. That's what the whole book is about. Some of my favorite comics are romance comics. There is a genre for romance. But yes, I do agree that somebody's relationship doesn't necessarily have to be a plot point. That's again, like, you don't have to point at a character and say this is a bisexual or polyamorous or pansexual relationship. You just illustrate it in their daily workings and their daily activities.
Right,
And you
and-
show a healthy, well-rounded relationship or an unhealthy relationship,
When
but
are we going to
well-rounded and
get to the
evolved
point
and
that can be so?
it's just part of their
Yeah, it
characterization.
depends. Yeah, that also really depends on the genre. Did you have a question?
Yeah, no, I had a quick question in regards to, I work at a school, and one of the things I applied for was like a Safe Zone Ally program, and we did talk about that. We talked about the different types of identification within the queer community. And one of the things I wanted to ask, because one of the things they talked about that I knew was going to be hard. I identify as a straight ally, so I'm not as fabulous as all of you. So you guys all win.
Still fabulous.
Everybody who's
We need
here
more
is
straight.
fabulous.
Yeah, we need more straight allies.
Which I mean puts me in an interesting position
downgrade
because
that.
I always consider it because of the ally. I am part of the queer community because of the ally aspect.
Yes, bingo, nailed it.
So anywho, going on to my question, based on your own experiences, and you may not have realized in college or maybe kind of after college, for potential students who either might say that they're bi or questioning, or maybe there's in that situation where maybe they are gay or lesbian, but that's like their comfort. What's your suggestion based on your experiences? Like, what would you have liked to have when you were trying to figure that out, that you would want other people to know, both straight allies or LGBT that may also think, oh,
That you're
guys, that
not
in between.
alone. This is important. Should we take this one at a time?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I want to go last though. So.
Okay.
My thing would just be don't try to figure it out for them. Is in that just whatever they tell you, just if they tell you they like boys and girls, or if they're not sure what they like, or just don't try to put a label on it for them. Don't try to figure it out for them per se, because a lot of it is, I still don't know. I've got these feelings and I'm trying to figure it out. I think for me, that's one of the things that really upset me and kind of pushed me out of both camps, was people just being dismissive or claiming to know what I was trying to tell them. And and so that would be my thing. Is just listen to them and accept it. And if they come out to you later and say, you know what, I thought I was bi, but I'm really gay. Well, great. But don't be like, oh well, yeah, of course, duh. I mean, just don't be accepting, be dismissive, or don't be dismissive, and just listen to what they tell you.
Did you have a question for him before I take this?
I kind of have one simple sentence. We define labels. Labels do not define us.
Yes.
You don't need a label.
So what took me so long to come out, I mean, I've only been officially out for maybe like 2 years in my own personal life, like to everybody, to the whole world, for like 6 months. And what took me so long to figure it out and actually come to terms with it and work through it was that I just felt alone. I felt alone. I had gay friends, I had lesbian friends. Nobody around me was really openly bisexual, and there wasn't a conversation being had around it. And so I just felt like I was kind of a bit of a freak of nature. So it was just something that I put aside and didn't really think about or discuss or deal with too much. And for kids that age, it's automatic that they're going to feel alone. They're 16 years old. They're like, egocentric. It's part of how it's part of their growing mind and how their psychology works. They've got a lot going on. So I feel like kids who think that they might be bisexual, the best advice you can give them is to let them know, no matter what they're questioning, that they're not alone. There are other people out there who are having this experience, that are other people who have had this experience. So, and that's where I think creating, LGBTQ ally programs, so that kids have friends who they can sort of fall back on when they have these questions, and just have a supportive environment where they can be who they are no matter what. And I think it is important in these organizations to include allies too, because you should all, I really love what you said about you are part of the queer community because you're an ally. Allies and straight people have this tendency to be like, well, I'm just straight. No, you're not just straight. You are a supportive member of a community. You're not excluded here. Like, that's not the point of what this is. Like, you were just as much actively involved in the community and a part of the community and a part of the support system. So, for kids that age, setting up that support system and having that net and having that place where they can go to be safe and just know that they are not the only person experiencing what they're experiencing.
Oh. I was just weird flashbacks about like, oh my god, that girl is so cute. And my high school friend's like, oh yeah, totally. And then I realized she came out as a lesbian a while later. That makes sense why I probably thought everybody thought girls were cute. But so maybe part of that would be if they are questioning, like, I think this girl's really cute. Well, yeah, that's totally cool. Not all straight people feel that way, so maybe you should explore these feelings under a different label. But I mean, you like what you like. It's not a big deal, I don't think. It shouldn't be a big deal. And I say that, but I haven't talked to my mom about it because I don't want her to know who I want to fuck.
We could do a whole separate panel on moms. Like,
moms, even as a straight person, I don't want my mom to know.
No, my mom would be totally chill, but she'd be like, let's not tell your dad, okay?
Yeah,
my mom was kind of the same way.
Yeah.
But he already found out, so.
But
yeah.
I'd also get questions of like, well, you're married. It's like, well.
Yep. And
doesn't change.
We're there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to turn that card in. It's not like Blockbuster.
My mom
use that quote. Use that.
My mom did when she saw that I was bisexual, she did call and she's like, so you and your husband are still together? And I was like,
Oh
yeah,
my
we're
God,
still
yeah.
together. And then at the same time, she also saw a post about polyamory.
Oh no.
So
assumption was you're fucking everybody.
Yeah, my mom just thinks we're running a brothel. Like,
I love that her view of polyamory is just like they just fuck everybody all the time, everywhere. Therefore, Danny fucks everybody every time, everywhere.
Yeah, and then I actually got her to understand the whole polyamory thing. I was like, look, you're in a great emotional relationship. You're very much in love, and the only thing that's in your way is sexual attraction and wanting to have sex with other people. Well, it seems kind of stupid that you would ruin your marriage over wanting to have sex with other people. And she's like, oh yeah, that does seem kind of stupid.
Did you just win her over on polyamory?
God, I hope so.
So
great. Losing control of the
Anyway, sorry.
Did you go to dinner with my parents?
All of our parents.
Answer.
Okay, what was the question though? Like I can't remember.
What can she tell
schools.
kids?
Yeah.
So
what can you just call it? Or I teach at A&M, which is a really
Ooh, man.
a fun little campus. We found out.
Ridiculously familiar.
Oh yeah, well I think I've talked to you a few times on Twitter, so.
Have you? Okay.
Okay, we'll talk later. No, I think when we did our Aggie Alley Annual like 10 years ago, we were #1 as the most homophobic campus.
Oh.
And now we're down to number 6.
I'm from College Station.
Oh really? And now we're down to number 6.
Well, that's
and
number
so we're getting better. And
so my advice.
I mean, we're still in the top 10 list, but we're working on it. So just kind of, but also high school is such a crazy, God, I don't even want to think about high school. It was so, but I mean, college I feel is like when students, because they're not at home, that they have kind of the freedom to eventually be like, oh.
But if you've been repressed,
that's totally cool.
Yeah,
if you've been repressed, like there was a lot. Part of what also took me so long to figure out who I was there were a lot of microaggressions in my childhood performed by my parents and family members that caused me to really kind of shrink back. And I think that being outside. It can kind of tip. It concerns me that these kids who are in high school and they have these microaggressions from either parents or teachers or students, in schools, and then coming to college and then just sort of being overwhelmed with the prospect of like figuring out and sorting out their own sexuality in and of itself can be incredibly daunting.
So, you good?
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So my biggest thing in high school was that I guess we didn't have a lot of lesbians or bi girls, so they all like dated each other, which in high school, it's just a mess. So like everyone just
change.
Well, the dating pool is small, right? So everyone was just like constantly talking like crap about them, like, oh, they're so slutty, they're so skanky, they're all just like sleeping with each other, whatever. So I was like, if I'm gonna be, well, nothing's wrong with it, but it's high school, so you're like, oh no,
So
I can't be skanky. So I was like, if you hear your students talking like that, maybe make them stop or tell them why that's not right, and make it an open environment, like just letting them know that you're there so that they can try to sort things out. I'm not sure that I had any teachers I would feel comfortable talking to about it, but if I had had that resource, it might have helped me sort through it faster than trying to talk to my straight friend about how girls are hot and she didn't think so. Like, yeah.
Like I think for kids it's really important for them, like incorporating all of these answers, is that they are validated in their feelings, that they know that they're not alone in them, and that they have a adequate support structure. Across the board for any sort of identity issue, those 3 things are incredibly important, whether we're talking about sexual orientation or we're talking about gender identity, those sorts of things. We need to validate people when they self-identify or when they have questions about their identity. Like, we need to say, it's okay for you to feel this way, and it is okay for you to explore this, and no matter what you decide to do, it's not going to affect how you are valued as a human being. You are still important, you still matter, no matter what you call yourself.
Got a little.
Do we need a hug? Do you need a hug, Kelly?
No, you can't sit down.
And actually, it's really funny. We are are 4 minutes over. So
we have
one question
more.
in the back
One
who's
question.
been patiently
One more.
waiting.
Okay. I had a question about how not to erase bi visibility in video games for like video game characters.
That's hard.
Who are
First, how about we get a lady in there? And then we probably explore having bisexuality because you have a lady in your game.
So you can
Do you have an example? Like, is there something in particular you're thinking of?
I was thinking specifically, like, if you have a character that's available to romance no matter what gender you make your own character. Something like that.
Dude, Dragon Age, just the best. Yes. Just like copy and paste that, because that works. Like they're legitimate relationships in these games in Dragon Age and Mass Effect. They're legitimate relationships that you have with these characters, and the fact that you can't do that to everyone.
Is it the fact that some of them are not bisexual? But
Yes, because you have a handful of romanceable characters, but then you have in the latest game you have Dorian. He's exclusively gay. He only romances men. You have Sarah, exclusively lesbian. You have Josephine, who is bisexual. You have Cassandra, exclusively heterosexual. So you've got a whole lot of options.
Iron Bull. He's bisexual.
Iron Bull.
No, pansexual, I think.
Yeah, Iron Bull just.
Yeah,
he loves it all.
Everyone just got really excited.
I love Iron Bull.
So to that effect, I have a question here. How many of you raise your hands are like any kind of creator, like write fiction, write comics, write anything?
Oh wow,
Okay, yes, that's great. So I love seeing these hands because it is our responsibility to address that question, whether it's in comics, whether it's in whatever your medium is, it is your responsibility to address that topic because, you know, we are the makers of dreams, you know, we are the creators, you know, write what you know. Write what you experience, write what you feel.
Write what you want to read.
And write what you want to read.
Write what you wanna
Other, you know, you have to prove to these, you know, you have to prove that there's money in representation. And I hate to say that, that's a terrible, awful, horrible thing to have to say. But if you can do it and you can support and if you didn't raise your hand, if you're one of those people who didn't raise your hand, you can you can actively support the works that do represent, because that's also how you can show whoever's out there making the money and producing the works that there is an audience for this and that we demand it. Create demand for the change you want to see in media.
So on that call to action, I'm going to say thank you all for
Thank
coming.
you for standing.
Stickers for people.
Stickers! I have business cards, not on me though.
Sticker also, what's the fucking point, Mia?
Yeah.
Can I just say, I'm surprised that we got through this entire panel without talking about Willow from Buffy.
Oh God, almost!
That's a whole other panel. One panel just for that.
I feel like Allison Hannigan.